Welcome to your weekly Social Jack Influence Factory. Introducing your coaches, Dean Delisle, Kate Hassett, and Jackson Delisle.
Hey,
Hey,
Hey, how's everybody doing?
good.
good.
How are you?
Oh, good as always.
Best day of the
You-
week, Influence
I
Factory
know.
Day.
That's right. Welcome everybody to another episode of Influence Factory. And Kate, if people want to join us on social, what do they do?
Well, of course, we'll be live tweeting this whole program. Shout out to Jen, one of our writers. She's on Twitter right now. You can follow us at Get Social Jack as well as hashtag Influence Factory. And then we're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn at Get Social Jack or at Social Jack, and also on Twitter at Get Social Jack and Snapchat as well. So lots of storytelling, lots of ways to follow us wherever you prefer. We're there.
Woo!
That
Did
was
you
a
get all that,
lot.
Jackson?
Yeah, I thought what I say is a lot.
All right, we want to welcome everybody. And then speaking of welcoming everybody, Jackson, if people do want to grab us after the program, where the heck do they go?
Well, they can go to YouTube to watch the recording after the fact, and then also they can listen to it on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spreaker, and SoundCloud. So make sure to
That's
check
cool.
that out. And then if you subscribe on any of those channels, you'll get automatically notified when we upload a recording. So
That's right.
Perfect.
That's what we love. All right. So don't forget to turn off those distractions and tune in. So now, this is the part about engagement. We always want you to engage because that's the secret to building your influence, and the secret to social media success is to really engage. And so we let you practice in this sandbox with us on engagement. So if you're on with us on the platform, there is a go to webinar taskbar, just like what's on the picture on the screen. And if you have audio problems, which, the internet's, has faults, and we're going to have audio problems. So all you can do is switch between phone call and computer audio. And then you're going to get a pop-up, or you're going to go from computer audio to phone call, and you're going to get a pop-up with a number and an access code like on the screen. And a lot of you listen to us en route to appointments, and there's also a mobile app, so you can put us on your iPad or your phone, but don't drive and watch. And then also, we want you to engage with questions because we have a very important guest today, and we have a lot of things we're going to learn like we do every week. Jackson, did you get that sponsorship from Red Bull? I just saw Red Bull.
no, but I'm still working on it. So
You go, you little influencer. Okay, so now with that being said, we'd like you to put, we always like you to respond to a social question. So I know we have some people overseas that are listening in and people all over the world. But here in the U.S., we celebrate Thanksgiving next week, and we're going to skip next week's show. But we're not going to skip next week's meal. So what is your favorite Thanksgiving comfort food? Type that in right now. Your favorite Thanksgiving comfort food. It could be appetizer, main course, or dessert. Jen's already over this. So Kate, what's your favorite thing?
My favorite thing is actually the leftover sandwich you make the next day with the turkey and the gravy. And I put mashed potatoes on mine. And when everything kind of sits and this is a gross word, but congeals overnight, I like the leftover sandwich.
There you go. Jackson, what about
What I
you?
look forward to.
after the use of that word, I might not. I can't even think about food. Stuffing is good. I just saw Jen come in there with the stuffing, but no, probably when you do the turkey with the cranberry, just I don't know. It all has to be together in order for me to eat it anyway, because I would never just choose to eat that on a regular basis. So But it's probably the turkey and cranberry sauce.
All right, Steve and Allison, we got more people logging in. So Jim's just logging in now. So we're asking about what your favorite sort of comfort food is around Thanksgiving. And Sherry said dessert, all desserts.
All of it.
I have to say, I love every like Pinterest related home cooked appetizer that people bring. So they'll bring these, like if you ever had like the warm crab dip and those things, I'm just like, oh my gosh. And then, I'm not a big fan of turkey. So usually on Thanksgiving, I don't even have a piece of turkey, but I'm like you that the day after,
Yeah.
I like the turkey sandwiches or turkey, whatever you make out of it. So I like turkey pot pie too.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah. I do like the appetizers, though. You're right. That's the best part about hosting Thanksgiving at your house. It's telling everybody to bring appetizers, and then they bring some Pinterest stuff, and that's the best.
Yeah, and I think the Bears are playing on Thanksgiving. So then you got football, and I know we figured out everybody's favorite teams last week and all that good stuff. So if you're just joining us a few minutes late, we're putting in the comfort food for Thanksgiving that's your favorite. And even if you're overseas and you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, what the heck? What's your favorite comfort food?
Yeah.
Right on. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for partying with us and joining in here, especially on the food lunch hour conversation. Social Jack members, don't forget you can log in, and we still, till the end of the month, have it where you can click on member, sign in, even if you're not a member yet. And you can take a tour of all the previous episodes and then some other classes that we have, like how to rock your personal brand. There's worksheets that you can download to get sort of your house in order for the new year. So please make sure you take advantage of that. Socialjack.com. So there's all kinds of cool uploads up there. And then also special discounts. So you'll get messaged on special discounts for upcoming programs. So we have our social selling class that's coming up. It's all virtual. You can take it from anywhere in the world. And you guys will get half off just by logging into LinkedIn. Half off the early bird, right, Kate? It's not just half off the class. It's half off the early bird. So
yeah, absolutely. That's an even bigger discount. And early bird ends this Friday. So
yes, and remember, we will automatically log you into tomorrow's class. So you're all going to get a message on how to convert LinkedIn connections to appointments. And this is cool because this is a section of our class where we tell you what to say. So have you ever connected to somebody on LinkedIn and you had to make that first move or next move and you didn't know exactly what to say? Well, we're going to give you the 5 easy messages that we teach in our class, and then we're going to give you a messages tip sheet. So who wants that? Isn't that cool? And that'll be in Social Jack as well. I know. Well, Kate, when you first started with us, you were like, I don't even know how to talk to people. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and I don't even Facebook, and I don't know how to talk to people on LinkedIn. Now it's like second nature. You help our clients talk to people.
Yeah, found you on LinkedIn. Look at me now.
That's right. That's right. So, all right. So now, and then our LinkedIn social selling fast track class, Jackson, I don't see the promo code up there. So if you could just, I think it's SJ5050.
Yes. Yeah, that one's
at salesjack.net, and Jackson will post that into the chat there for you. And then if you put in SJ5050, you'll get half off of the early bird, which I think now comes out with 90 days of coaching. You get access to all the classes, and then the live instructor-led and the recorded classes, and you literally, I think it comes out to $97. So, and all the coaching that you want. So how about that for your personal brand? All right, Influence Factory, we have some news going on here. So the big news, which I can't wait to see if they do, I don't know what you think about this, Kate, but Jackson, tell us a little bit about what Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, came out with this week.
Yeah, this is super cool. So what I always hear when I talk to people about Twitter is that it does not have an edit function, and all other platforms do. You can edit on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of them except for Twitter. But and for the longest time I couldn't figure out why they were taking so long to do this. In this article, Jack Dorsey goes through and discusses his concerns with doing that, with giving them the option to edit. He fears that there is giving people the option to edit a tweet will give them the option to edit any tweet they've ever tweeted. And if they do that, let's say that I were to tweet something. This is a direct quote from him. So he said, what if I were to tweet something and then you go and retweet it, and then I go and edit the tweet to something you don't agree with? Now you've retweeted something that you don't agree with, and that's what he's trying to prevent, which I can completely understand. And it took me so long going, why aren't they doing this? Like everyone else can do it. It can't be that hard,
Well, and I love the power of authenticity, as you know. It's one of my classes. So the idea is, you know what? Everybody in the world, especially Kate and the content team, know that I have an issue with typos, but I'm open about it. I'm like, you know what? I apologize. I did proof it. I had somebody proof it. But in this world, there's going to be typos because I want to get my content into the hands of users as fast as possible. And I will work, extra hard to make sure we proof things. But if I'm tweeting or I'm at an event, I'm putting things out there, I almost like, and there are things, and sometimes I'll just take it down and put it back up. And I like because Twitter's in the moment and it's more instantaneous. But I'd like to hear from our attendees today that are actually live with us. So are you on Twitter, and are you in favor of the edit button on Twitter? So if they give you the ability to edit, Kate, what do you think?
When it first dropped, I was like, yes, absolutely. Why is there not an edit button? And then when I started to really think about it, I kind of think that if there is an edit button, Twitter will lose some of its authenticity. Twitter is one of those platforms that you love or you hate. And I think the people that love it because it's those spur of the moment thoughts. It's whatever you think at the moment. You can put something up very quickly with limited characters. It's right to the point. It's blunt. It's your news. It's the most compact timeline of any social media. And I think if we can edit it, it's going to lose its authenticity just a little bit.
Yeah, right. And I do want to remind our attendees too to please chime in. So far, Jen, Gail, and Sherry are in the lead for engagement prizes today. The rest of you just type in and make sure you're engaging with us so we can pick you as a winner. Who doesn't want gift cards, right? So make sure, and this is the key to your influence and really being with us, and then also making sure that you know how to ask questions to our amazing, fabulous guests today.
Yeah, so basically, the point of this article is saying that they are still exploring options, but they're leaning more towards not doing an edit button. But if they were to do an edit button, they're thinking more of like a 5-minute edit window. So after you've tweeted, if you maybe share the wrong URL and you go, oh wait, I got to change that. So you have like 5 minutes after you tweet. The point of all this is proof your tweets. Just proof and then tweet. How about that? Don't do it the other way around. So there you go, and that is the Social Jack News.
And when in doubt, delete your tweet and put it back out there the right way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can actually
don't
copy.
Tweet angry. Don't tweet angry because that's when you're
angry tweets.
Your phone and you're making the typos.
And I actually have a flask that was a giveaway that says "Don't drink and tweet" too. So that's another part.
But if you actually the little drop down arrow to delete the tweet, you can actually copy the tweet, so it will copy everything, and then you can delete the tweet and copy that into your new tweet, and then edit whatever you needed to. So that's also easy. Yeah, all drop the mic. I'm
Gail
done.
Says sorry, not on Twitter. Yes, I am impulsive, so it's scary to me. I love that, Gail. Way to be authentic. I say name your fear. That's how we can help you. Sherry, I'm no longer active, but when I was, I really wanted to edit. So just so you all know, Twitter is again on the rise. So I would encourage you to at least check it out a little bit. And we have a ton of classes in Social Jack on Twitter. So can't do enough of that. So real quick, I see a lot of new people, so I want to welcome new people and welcome the old people back with us. So I just want to put up real quick, we have a lot of classes coming up in 2019. We have waiting lists, and a couple classes are already pre-filled. So I'm going to put up a waiting list on here, and then Jackson, we'll see you on the other side. And then please answer the poll. You just have to go to the screen and click on there, and you're automatically added. No money, no nothing. We just know to contact you first. to get into these classes. So do you like influencer development, social streaming, personal branding, or LinkedIn social selling? Just claim the ones that you want to be on the waiting list for. I think it's let you select multiples. We'll leave it up there for 10 seconds. So real quick, Kate, this is the time of year when everybody needs to think about their goals. And Casey's going to come up and really talk about goals. But what's interesting is we give people the simple short-term goal that when they log into social media, have an intention. Just like when we were at the networking event last night, I wanted to meet 3 more new people to be part of my team or my network, and I met like 6 or 7 thanks to you. So the idea is I want to make sure that each and every one of you that can hear my voice, when you log in, what do you want to get out of that? Do you want more referrals, more appointments? Do you want new relationships and partnerships? And so make sure you have the intention of what you want to get out of the networking event that you're logging into. If it's it's Instagram, it's LinkedIn, make sure you have that intention. So that's the big message today. And then we're going to hear about other cool goals from our big guest today, Casey Mills. So Kate, I'm excited about this. He grew up in Wyoming. Have you ever been to Wyoming?
I have not.
I know. Now I want to go because I was like, I always have to look at places. I love to look at maps where people live. And I've always wanted to go to Nebraska, but I didn't know it was the least populated state in the U.S. So,
did not either.
But if you look at the beautiful country, it's like cool. He stood on top of the reaction chamber of an operating nuclear plant. So he is a superhero. He has superpowers. And then before he was a social media pro, he was a crime investigative news reporter.
Not surprised.
And never invite him to a luncheon. So Casey, come on down. Good to have you on with us today. So never say luncheon. So so I will always say you want to go break bread, you want to have a cocktail. Where did that resistance to luncheon come? There has to be like a story to that, right?
Yeah, so when I was in college, I was on this student PR committee that did college tours for like prospective students. And they always called their meeting, their annual monthly meeting, a luncheon. And I just don't know what it is about it, whether I didn't like those meetings or whether I didn't like the word luncheon, but it just like, it's just one of those words that just kind of grinds my gears. And like the premise of a luncheon, like let's just have a sandwich and talk about stuff. It doesn't have to be fancy.
What about lunch and learn? Do you hate that? Because that's what we call this. So
yeah, no, I'm fine with lunch and learn.
Okay.
Like that's great. There's like less pretension to that.
Okay.
Yes, right. Yeah, I like that. I think I like that too. So if somebody goes, do you want to go to a luncheon? Just say, well, my buddy Casey doesn't attend those, and neither do I. Can we just break some
Yeah.
our relationship together?
We just drop the eon at the end and just call it what it is. I mean,
let's grab a right. So you're on top of this nuclear reactor. Was it buzzing? I mean, come on, there had to be was there like no fear? Was there any type of fear of, this was while you were in college, right?
Yeah, well, it was when I was working at Oregon State University as a marketing person for their nuclear engineering department, and we had a research reactor on campus. And I think the challenge about nuclear education in the U.S. is nobody really knows a lot about it. Like you go to high school science class and they're like, the whole bottom of the periodic table, that stuff is made in a nuclear reactor. You don't really need to worry about that. And then in history, you learn that the first thing that we did with the technology was make a giant bomb. And so people are really afraid of it, right? But once you start to learn about it, and you learn that literally everything on the planet is radioactive at some level, and you start to understand the technology, it becomes less scary and more interesting. So it was really interesting to be part of that and talk to engineers who deal with this stuff every day and have access to things that normal people don't have access to from a nuclear science standpoint. But I got to stand on top of the reactor. I think the most frightening part of it is it's a giant concrete tube filled with water that's about 10 feet tall, and all the nuclear fuel is down at the bottom. So if you're afraid of heights, it's a little jarring to just look down into this hole full of water that has nuclear material at the bottom. But no other fear than that.
I
Yeah,
don't think just like if you're afraid of heights. I think just in general that's actually scary. So I'm not afraid of heights, but I'm still terrified of this scenario.
when I was young, it used to be a thing to climb up the town's water tower, which that's
Oh,
those
yeah.
thin stairs that you climb up, and then. But that was a part where I had a lot less fear. So now that I have mortgages and kids, I think it's like well, I'm going to be a little more responsible and not do those things. So.
Thank goodness.
But Kate, didn't you jump out of an airplane?
Yeah, I've jumped out of an airplane twice. I'm not scared of heights, but I'm not going to touch a reaction chamber of any nuclear reactor ever.
How about climb a water tower?
Yeah, probably not that either. I don't have a mortgage or kids, but I like my life.
All right, so I have to ask this. So just being a reporter, so what was the craziest story without disclosing any names? There had to be like some crazy story.
Oh, and there is a crazy story. I worked in a small town in Colorado, and I happened to catch by accident the first murder story that had happened there in about 30 years. And it was a really wild story. It was made into an episode of Deadly Sins on Investigation Discovery. So it was a really wild case that involved a kid who thought he was a hitman, but was really just the manager of a Burger King, and he ended up going to jail for life plus 34 in the case. So.
Wow.
Should be on NCIS or something, right? Or something like that.
I mean, it really makes good TV. It's a ridiculous story. I can email you guys the IMDb episode link if any of you are interested.
Yeah, I mean, now that we know the reporter involved, come on, we're
Yeah.
1 degree. We're not 1 degree from the story anymore. We are at the story, the source.
Yep.
So, all right. So you're in this amazing PR place you're physically in Nebraska now, right? So,
Yep,
so
we're in
now
Lincoln,
you're at
Nebraska.
so now you're in this amazing PR company. How did you get here, like where you're at today?
It was a really meandering journey. And I think that when I talk about what I do and how I got here, I think that's my greatest asset is that I didn't go to college intending to be an advertising person or a social media person. I just kind of ended up here by way of things that I was interested in. So I originally wanted to be a fighter pilot, but I didn't have the math or science grades to get into the Air Force Academy. So I went to college and thought I was maybe going to get into advertising. And I took a long detour down an interest in journalism and photojournalism and spent a lot of years doing that, believing that PR and marketing was the dark side and I would never go there. And then after seeing what's kind of happened in the journalism industry and what a tough business that is, I thought, well, maybe PR is not so bad. And so I got into the PR and marketing side and just kind of found that I really had an interest and affinity for social media and started to pursue that interest. And that led me to where I am today.
Yeah, that's huge. So as you think about it, we always coach our students. We're all about what we call social teaming. If you Google it out there, it's pretty much all of our content. And I've taught college courses about this, about going from, college to your career and furthering your career. So there had to have been people that were part of that journey that got you to this moment, right? Can you tell us a little bit about your network or the people that you developed in your network that got you to here?
Yeah, I mean, so I feel like I'm an anomaly in this industry because the secret about me is that I'm really an introvert that is very good at pretending to be something else. And so I can do the 12-hour trade shows. I can talk to a bunch of people, but at the end of that, I'm just drained. It just takes so much energy for me to do that, but I do it. And I think because of my aversion early on for like talking to people, I really downplayed networking, right? I was of the mindset that my merit and my skills and my knowledge and my degrees and whatever else, that's going to get me there every single time. And if I just have those things, if I have the right assets, if I have the right tools in my toolbox, that will win out every time. And that's just not true. And I tell our interns this because I supervise the intern program here as well, is that when you graduate college, there are going to be thousands, tens of thousands of kids that have the same minted degree as you, that did just as well in the same classes that you did all around the country. And the only thing that makes a difference between the stack of resumes on someone like my desk is who you know or who knows you, right? Have you interned someplace before? And I say, oh yeah, like you interned at Fleischman Hillard. Like I know that they hire good people. I've met somebody at a conference there before. Let me give them a call and see if they've heard of your work or if they, can give me information about it. So that bumps you up on that list, and you still have to have the merits. You still have to have the toolbox, right? But the network is the X factor. And so, I got my job here because I called up somebody that I went to grad school with, and it ended up working out. But, that really kind of changed my mind about networking and influence in general.
That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, we see that a lot too with our people. I also oversee the content writers on the social media team, and so I always tell them, if you can work for me, you can work for anybody. And I kind of tease them, but when they're leaving me, they're going to be prepared to enter the workforce. And it's kind of like Dean's like one of the master networkers in my network. He's somebody that I have on my starting line. But it is so important, and I think also with the way social media is moving right now and how we're bringing the social back into social media. I say that every week, but it's so important that we're not collecting just connections, that we're making connections. So I love that. And I have a lot of friends that have talked about how hard it is to find jobs after graduation. But, it's kind of that disconnect of like our generation, I think, Casey, where we know how to use social, but we don't necessarily know how to use it the right way. So I love that. I love that we're guiding the next generation to kind of use their network, use their connections to find jobs. Because when you're applying online, they can't see anything but a piece of paper.
Yeah. Well, and so what I do, this is a trick that I use when I go and speak at colleges, is that I take my business cards with me, but I don't just leave them on the desk. I tell the students, look, if you want my contact information, you're going to have to come up here and get it. You're going to have to talk to me and ask me for it. And if you don't want to ask me about what I know, or you don't want to ask me about a job or an internship, then you can go about your way, but you're going to have to make a connection. We're going to have a conversation if you want my contact information. And
Yes.
I'm still surprised about how few people take us up on that. And I also feel like you should maybe not go to college until you're 30, because now, I did a good job at college, but thinking about the opportunities that I wasted to connect with people who were brought to our college for specifically that purpose. And I just walked out the door and went back to my dorm room and without saying anything to them. And I'm just oh my gosh, 20-year-old Casey, what are you doing?
I love that you mentioned that too. And I love that you bring up business cards. We were at this networking event last night, this LinkedIn local, and I couldn't even fathom how many people showed up without business cards. And I guess they're kind of old school, and we were there for LinkedIn, so you could connect right there from your phone. But I was like, that's so important still in this day and age. That's this, come up and hand me a business card. Then I'm going to add you on LinkedIn. I'm going to find you. I'm going to remember this conversation. I was just amazed. A lot of people, I guess, don't really believe in it anymore.
No, hold on though. What I hate worse is when right before you talk to somebody and they walk up and they're doing this. It's without even a conversation, they've got it. It's almost like they're, and Casey, maybe this, you said you're more of an introvert and I'm more of an, extrovert, I guess, but it's I want to talk to you. I want to have a conversation, and you're going to ask me, or we're going to get to a point where we trust each other and exchange business cards with the intent to do something together next.
Absolutely. I always think those people are the ones that come into the networking event with a goal. I'm going to hand out 5 business cards today. So I try not to give them too hard of a time. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
So what do you think, Casey? Are the business cards going by the wayside in today's digital world, or you still think it's a good business thing?
We have them, and I hand them out, and I collect them and use them. But I think it's not necessarily about how the information is exchanged. It's about what you do with it, right? So
I don't collect them at all.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. And I've got the same stack, and so social media at our agency is still in the PR department, so I was a traditional PR person for a while. And those business cards are all about like where my next stories are going to come from. So like every business card I have in my stack, I have notes about who that came from, what conversation we had, and like what the next opportunities are to get a story in their publication, because that's the value of having those. I can get their email address anywhere, but it's just this physical reminder of a conversation we had that ties to my notes, and I know how to get a hold of them about a story that I want placed.
Right.
So before we get to your methodology here, I've got to ask. So if you're at a networking event, do you have a trick that like you're polite and you take the card even if you're not going to follow up, and that goes in one pocket, and then you have the people that you absolutely are going to follow up with, and that goes in another stack? Or how do you operate that way?
To be honest, I don't even have to sort them, right? Like if I look through my stack of business cards, I will automatically remember, hey, like I had a conversation with this person. I have a face to go with that name. And if you just handed me a business card, then, it's just easy to pass that by, right? There's a connection there, and there's like a moment that I distinctly remember. And, I don't even have to sort them in different pockets to know the impact of like whether we had a connection or not.
That's a good call.
Hey, I want to dive in and kind of talk about you coming and making the shift from PR to social media. We actually have a guest coming up on Influence Factory at the end of the month that's going to talk about the real difference between PR and social media. But we're seeing that they're similar, especially now with like the storytelling aspect of social and how big that is. So can you kind of tell us a little bit about that transition, how easy that was, what adjustments you had to make?
So I think there's a couple components to being a successful social media person, and PR and journalism really lend themselves to that, right? In that journalism and public relations are mirrors of each other, in that it's all about telling a relevant story to the right people in a way that they care about. And if you can't meet that standard, then you don't have a story, you don't have work, you don't have anything to do, and you're not going to have a job very long. So the same standards are starting to be applied to social media, right? Where like bad content is getting penalized and good content gets rewarded. Right. So the skill set that it takes to do that from like a journalism and PR standpoint are really valuable, but it's the technology and the metrics piece that is really confusing to a lot of PR people, right? Because like PR is just as much craft as it is science, right? Like we know the right places that we want to be. We know the publications, we know their circulation, whatever. But it's about understanding that like we can apply a really heavy amount of like science and data processing to that storytelling process in social media, and that really sharpens it up. And a lot of the PR people that I've seen who have tried to make that change or trying to like understand it, like that's where they get caught up, is, it's becoming more science than it is craft. And because of some of the metrics that are being available on digital PR now, that's starting to leak its way into there. So I think the PR industry needs to play some catch up. But from a content creation standpoint, it's a pretty easy transition as long as you have somebody who understands all the data and technology that you need to combine with that to make it effective.
Yeah. That's good. That's a good call. So I know you want to take us through a few parts of your process, right? So you can share with that and we can learn. Can I go ahead and turn over controls to you then? And then keep in mind that a lot of our folks are listening on podcast. So we just want to, we'll describe anything as best we can as we're walking through that. But those of you that are live or watching the video, guess what? You get to see some stuff.
So just to kind of give everybody a backstory of how this came up, it's probably a question that you've asked yourself. If you do social media in-house, if you're doing social media for yourself, if you're doing B2B social media, it's like goals, social media goals. What's the point of this? We're talking about intentional content. We're talking about goals, but then how do you meet them? How do you set them? How do you know when you've met them, what to kind of do next? So Casey's got this really awesome recipe for what he does with his clients, and that's kind of what prompted this whole episode. So I think everybody's really excited. And I'll let you take it away. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, so I'm just going to run through a couple slides of, kind of what I do here at Swanson Russell. Swanson Russell is a full service ad agency, the largest in Nebraska. 90% of our business is outside of Nebraska. So we're a national agency working with a lot of clients in a lot of different industries. So what I do here is I lead our social media team, and these are, kind of the laundry list of things that I have to figure out, including everything from account security to influencer marketing and how our system works, insights collection and integration. These are some of the clients that I work for on the B2B and B2C side. I've got everything from a salad dressing brand to the world's largest manufacturer of chainsaw chain. So there's a lot of really interesting, varied industries on here. And I think that, like we talked about, that's kind of my secret weapon in that I have a really weird, varied background. So I have some knowledge about different industries. And then because I get to work with so many different industries here at Swanson Russell, I kind of have a broader perspective than other folks might. So when we get into goals and where to start, what is a good social media goal, right? The attributes of a good goal in my mind are, and whether you're doing this as like an influencer to promote yourself or whether you're doing this for a client, I think all these apply, right? Is connecting to overall business goals. And when Dean was talking about going online with a purpose, this is really it, right? Like your social media goals should support what you want to accomplish as a business, whether that is like sell more chainsaw chain, get more people to use propane, increase people's good perception of beef. Whatever that is, social media needs to be connected into supporting that goal. It needs to be based on real world data and appraisals, right? Like we want to, we really want to make an honest analysis of like what's going on and what's happening and what's possible, right? Everybody wants a viral video, but in a lot of industries, the reality is that if you have a viral piece of content, it's likely not about anything good. So it's just about having those conversations.
Right.
And consider spend, how much money you have to spend, consider content quality, and then benchmark that against known industry standards. So the question is really, what's realistically possible given your client assets and budget? And when we initially had this conversation, Kate, I know we were talking about specifically follower growth and, how many followers should we be gaining and at what rate and what's acceptable and what's the right number there. So my formula is kind of based on showing you how to figure that out, but this really applies to any kind of goal that you would want to set for social media. But I think the first thing that I want to cover is the downfall of follower count, right? So I think that a lot of people know this about social media, but I think it's important to call out because sometimes it gets downplayed. You do not own your social media audiences. You rent them from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and to access a significant portion of them, you just have to pay the toll every time. And that creates a challenge, and I think in this world devalues a follower, increasingly so.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, the follower number is just kind of a vanity metric, It doesn't mean they're engaged, it doesn't mean they're buying your products, they're just following.
Yeah, they're there. And so when you look at, this is one of our clients. Our client is down here at the bottom, Textron Off-Road. They've been trying to play catch up in this industry for a long time. They make things called ATVs and UTVs. So think about like the highest powered, fastest, craziest go-kart you've ever seen. That's what this industry is about. And they've got some heavyweight competitors. Can-Am Off-Road and Polaris are the folks that really own this industry. And Textron, in terms of followers, we're a long way behind. And so knowing the value of a follower, it's important to say, look, like it's a waste of money for us to try to just keep up on follower count. That's not where we're going to achieve value. Like, yes, that might be an important metric when we look at this overall, but it's not the end all be all. And we shouldn't build a social media plan around just gaining these followers that even if they follow us, we're going to have to pay to access them again anyway. So we focus on reach and engagement. So we say, okay, how many people in our target audience can we reach and how many of them can we engage with our content? And does it matter if they follow us or if they follow Can-Am? Absolutely not. If they're interested in our product category, then we want to show our content to them because maybe the next time they trade up a vehicle, they were interested in one of ours instead of one of the competitors. And I think one of the major metrics that tells this story is that according to BrandWatch, 96% of users who discuss brands on social don't follow those brands' owned profiles. So all the people who are talking about stuff, yeah, I mean, that's huge. And so then it's really hard
96.
for us to talk to clients who say, well, how do we get more than 20,000 Facebook followers? How do we get more followers? Well, like it's not just about that anymore, and it can't be about that.
Right. That's interesting. That kind of just leads me into like thinking that people really do just use social media sometimes to vent about things. You don't even follow the content. That's crazy.
Well, and if you think about like the way that most brands do social media, following brands is actually kind of boring,
Yeah.
right? Compared to like everything else that you can do, like the brands really struggle to continually create good, engaging content, and it's expensive and it's really tough to compete for that mind share. And so, some of the clients that we've worked with, we've had people literally tell us, yeah, like I started following that after that promotion that you did, but then I unfollowed you on Instagram because it just wasn't interesting. Like the entertainment factor is so high, and I think it goes beyond just these B2B and B2C silos that we think in, right? Like everybody is a consumer, and their experience online is based on engaging with some of the best content creators and consumer brands out there. So even if you're B2B, if you want a piece of these people's attention, you're competing against everything else that they might be interested in. And that's a really tall mountain to climb for some brands.
One of the things that I'm thinking about as you're saying this is I started seeing, and you probably saw this too, Casey, where a lot of the brands, as we were going through the sort of humanizing the brand campaign starting a few years back, is that people would start putting their name or their initials in the brand tweet, so they knew it was who it was coming from, and they could sort of build this humanistic. This isn't just coming from Pepsi, but it's coming from Jane at Pepsi or whatever. Do you still see that, or is that something that sort of was a fad, and now all of a sudden the brand's protecting from Jane, or what do you see out there?
I mean, I don't see a lot of that happening on the posts that come from the brand account. But what we are seeing and what we have a lot of our clients do is we say, okay, this is the brand account. This is what the brand account does, and this is what it talks about. It's things that we try to make engaging and that you would expect to see from a brand. But let's get your employees engaged, people who can represent you, who have the expertise, have a face, have a personality, and they can go out there and help us engage on our behalf in a way that like the brand as a logo, as our profile picture, just flat out can't do. And then also I think that signing with your name or your initial is like a really good customer service tactic when you're responding to direct messages or complaints as a brand in the comment section or in direct messages. I think that's still a tactic that's very effective, so that you get that you're talking to a person, and that person is maybe talking from a script, but they're writing their responses in a way that are more authentic rather than just this cut and paste of legalese that, is the standard response to these questions.
Absolutely. I keep getting sponsored ads on Twitter from Sprint's CEO. I don't, it doesn't make me think of it. Like every time I scroll through my Twitter feed, I get a tweet from Sprint CEO, like, please follow me. I'm like,
can you just reply to him and say, please hire Social Jack, and then we'll help you be better.
Please give me free cell phone, and then we'll talk more. Thank you.
So what do you? So Casey, what's your is part of the recipe here? Because now you have me curious. Is it going to be like, what do we do with the 96%?
Yeah. So what I'm going to show is because for the reality is that whether or not we place a high value on followers, you still have to come up with a number for your clients, right? Like you can't get away with not doing it. So I'm going to show how we come up with those numbers.
Good.
And then how we add value beyond that and coach folks to make better choices.
So Kate, this will help because we get asked that this time of year, like what's a good follower growth rate? And we really want to focus on engagement, as you heard us talk about, but they're like, no, we have to report it on followers. And we're like, okay, so we're going to learn here. So thank you for this.
Yeah, this is a big pain point. So basically what I do, the formula is past performance plus an estimate of growth potential equals a realistic goal. So the very first thing I do when I get access to anybody's social media is that I go and I dig through the data and I look at the past 2 years, because that's what I can get from Facebook in a very quick amount of time. So I look at the past 24 months of data and I say, okay, like how successful have they been at follower growth in the past 2 years? And if there are spikes, what can I attribute to those spikes if there are any? So looking at page one, and these are real screenshots of real followers from real clients that I've looked at. This first page here that has 200 and some thousand followers, man, in August 2017, they had a huge jump, like 90,000 users almost. And I want to know what happened there, right? There's this huge shelf, and then there's gradual growth beyond that. So what the heck did they do that caused that? I want to know about that. And then when we look at this bottom page here, you can see it's more gradual, but there are some steps, some shelves, there's some step ups there. And those are the things that I want to focus on and say, hey, like when you grew by like 1,000 followers in a month, I want to know what you did there. What was going on? What content were you running? What was being engaged with? What happened? So the other thing that I will say is this is a standard stockbroker's disclaimer that if you've ever invested in the stock market, they always say past performance may not be indicative of future results.
Right.
And that's something to keep in mind here. So that's where this growth potential estimate comes in. So you have to think about what's been done before. Consider the historical data that you've pulled and think about what that means in context of what you've got planned for next year. The slide that I have here, the screenshot I have on the right side is one of our clients, Site One Landscape Supply. Follower growth was very important to them at the beginning because they are the #1 landscape supplier in the country, the only national one, and they wanted a social presence that reflected that, right? So there is no way that they can have this logo, this #1 logo, and not be the #1 in every category. So, you know, that's one of the few times where we really prioritize follower count after the brand launch. But you want to consider the environment too. Is the market that you're in the same as it was 2 years ago?
Right.
If it is, you're in a very boring industry. But it probably isn't. And is that to your benefit or is that to your detriment? And then what's in your toolbox? What assets do you have to be competitive in this future environment? You need both quality content and adequate funds to ensure that it's seen, because we know that we've got to pay the toll to access our folks every time, whether they follow us or whether we're reaching that 96% out there who don't. We're going to have to pay to get this content in front of them. So I look at this data and I say, okay, well, what happened at this 90,000 follower bump on page one? Okay, I would say that they obviously spent some money on an exclusive effort to gain new followers. And if we estimate that they spent 35 cents, it cost them 35 cents per new follower, that's kind of like a rough industry average they use on Facebook. Then that's like almost a $32,000 direct spend to recruit new followers. And probably nobody's going to sign off on letting us do that again. Clearly they didn't in the past year since they saw that bump. So we're going to have to look at what a world looks like after that. And at page two, we can see these shelves correlate to campaigns that we're running. So we can say, look, like we've got some really effective campaigns going on here, and that's what correlated to these bumps. So our recommendations become, on page one, we need to pivot our strategy to invest in reach and engagement, knowing that followers will be a side effect of success, but they aren't the first priority. That we need to go reach that 96% and engage them with our content. And the people who want to follow us, they will follow us based on that, and we'll continue to see growth. But we're not going to dump $32,000 into explicit follow us ads and then not have spent that money on creating good content to keep them interested. And then on page two, we're going to invest in timely campaigns that reach users beyond our current audience and engage them, and bump up again. That bump in following will be a side effect. So when it comes down to applying my formula, I say, okay, past performance on page one in August 2017 to 18, after they had that huge 90,000 follower bump, they only gained 7,000 followers in the period after that. So we likely can't repeat that. So we need to look at what it looks like to 7,000 followers over a year. and we say, okay, we've got some good content, we've got money to push it. Users are still interested. There's still a pool of people out there who are interested in off-road vehicles in this client's world particular. And so we haven't maxed out our audience. And so we know that there's still people out there. So let's say conservative estimate, we're going to add, 7,000 plus 10%. We're going to do, last most reliable number plus 10%.
So how did you come up with the 10%?
The 10% this is where you kind of have to apply what you think is possible, and it's going to be unique for every client. So you've got to say, okay, best number on record that we should base it on is 7,000. And then I can say, okay, I think that we are 10% better than the last folks who did this, or we know that we've got a good investment in content that is happening. And so this is kind of where you just have to make an educated guess and try to be conservative. So if it's a brand that we've worked with for a while and we know a lot about, then we're a lot more confident in making a more aggressive projection. But for a lot of brands, I say like, okay, we're going to try and do 8 to 10% better and see where we are in a quarter or in half a year and go from there.
Gotcha. So you just kind of make a guess on the next goal, but then you're basing the new followers on the past trends.
Yes.
And then do you see certain industries that have realistic percentage increments, like, so maybe if it's if it's financial services or banking, it's one, it's maybe a lower percentage, but if it's a consumable product, more on the consumer side, it's a higher percentage. So what do you see on that level?
Well, let me tell you what is really a weird anomaly that happened in my data, and I don't know whether it's just a coincidence or whether there's something to this. But so the example that I showed you in page 1, Textron Off-Road, that is the company that makes the souped up go-karts. So when we look at page 2, these guys make they're a fast food chain, a local fast food chain. They essentially make pizza pockets full of cabbage and ground beef, and it's really popular here in Nebraska. But in their last year, they also grew 7,000 followers, right? That seems like a really strange coincidence to me, right, that there's just this steady 7,000 follower growth among these two pages in wildly different industries with wildly different target audiences, that no matter what either of them did in terms of campaigns, that's the number that they end up at. So it could be a coincidence, it could not, but I thought it was interesting.
That is interesting.
But when we look at page 2, yeah. So when we look at page 2, we say that anytime they ran a campaign, they gained between 1,000 to 2,200 followers as, a bonus to that. So we're going to say we know this client, we've got 3 strong campaigns this year instead of 2. We're going to say that, a fair estimate is that we'll put up 1,500 followers each time we run a campaign, plus there'll be just general growth that happens in off-campaign time. So we'll say we'll do 7,000 plus 20%. So our new follower goal for this brand would be 8,400.
Got it.
Yeah. So factors to consider when you're doing this, because I know we're running short on time here. Remember that each channel is different. Remember that keep your target audience in mind, right? That like you can't expect the same results with a strategy designed to engage 55 plus year olds and apply that to 18 to 24 year olds on social and think that strategy is going to work for you. And that seems obvious, but something that I think is important to call out. And then understand your available assets, right? Like none of this happens in a vacuum. So you only have so much money, time, and resources. And so if like we were talking about, that conversational engagement is going to move the needle for you on Twitter, but you don't have the assets to do that well, then you're going to have to set some appropriate expectations to say, look, like this is the thing that we know is going to earn you the most engagement and followers. But if you can't do that, then you're going to have to set your expectations lower for what you can achieve in that channel. So just wrapping up here, how we keep tabs on this, we do monthly reporting to look at progress toward our set goals. We do quarterly check-ins to take a serious look at our progress. And then we make projections. So if we say, here we are at this time, here's where we are now. If we continue on this pace for the next 8 months, where will we be? And will we hit our goal or not? And if not, then what are we going to do to start amping these things up? I think it's also important to make halftime adjustments.
Right.
But so this is Scott Frost, new coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers, allegedly the football team's savior. And he comes in and we go, I think, 0-6. We've now won 3 games. But the point is, you got to give your strategies time to work. You don't need to panic. You got to give them some time to see whether they're working or not. But you also need to be prepared to make halftime adjustments, and that's what those quarterly check-ins are for. We'll give it 3 months and say, all right, where are we at? And if we're not where we need to be, then we make some adjustments. And then this is where being conservative pays off, right? Because even if you're struggling a little bit at the start, you've still got some room to like make it up and make adjustments and realistically hit your goals. So my main principles of success are expect fluctuation. Your monthly numbers are going to go up and down, and you can see this in this engagement graph here, specifically tracking Facebook shares for a client. But I look at year to year. Are we doing better than we were this same time last year? Because a lot of these industries are cyclical, right? Like a lot of people see a slump during the holidays and they rebound in January, or a lot of industries will see a peak time in June because that's when sales for their products happen, and then it's slow other times. So you want to look at like year over year to better understand the trends rather than month to month. And then I think you want to avoid arbitrary numbers, right? Refrain from picking specific numbers to achieve and keeping those like out of context, right? The number itself is not that important, it's what's behind it. So my final thought is that numbers on their own are meaningless. If you hit 10,000 engagements, what does that mean? If you like, right? Like you can go get engagement, you can just pump a bunch of money into a social channel and you can earn the engagements. But if they're not from the audience that you're targeting and that engagement isn't about what you need to tell them about to help support your business goal, then 10,000 engagements is meaningless, right? Sure. But if you said you wanted 10,000 engagements, but you only got 5,000 engagements from people who are really serious potential customers, that's a lot more meaningful. So that's really what I've got for you guys, and definitely interested in any thoughts that you guys have on this or taking some time to answer audience questions.
Yeah, so we are jammed on time. We got about 3 minutes left. So, but what we do encourage is that we know that Casey, you love probably LinkedIn more than anything. So what we'll do is we'll collect questions as we do on social media and make sure we get those back to you. And Gail says, go Big Red. But, so maybe, Kate, if you were going to bottom line, and we want you to type in, what's your big takeaway? And Casey, we always ask people to take one thing that they heard you say and put it into practice. So we'd like to see our audience type that in right now. And then Kate, I'm sure you have a whole list like I do here, but what's your one biggest takeaway?
So I like how you kind of put it into a process, because we always know we base our goals on where we've come from, but it kind of gave us a streamline, something to figure out. And a lot of people are working on smaller businesses, smaller projects, maybe even personal brands, but that really gave us a clear number as to where we started and where we're going. We can kind of make our own goals and like it. And I think another thing he mentioned that a lot of people forget is campaigns, and there's ways to launch campaigns even when you're a smaller company. If whether it's a seasonal campaign, whether it's joining one of those LinkedIn challenges, like video challenges for your personal brand, that could help you gain followers to like produce intentional content in campaign format. So it's the little things that you're doing to really see that growth. Set your goals, do a campaign to help drive your goals. And then also what he said is make sure the goals are in line with your business. If you're just looking for brand awareness, if you're looking for conversions, which, even from a personal standpoint, that's setting appointments on LinkedIn, right? So there's ways to just kind of to keep this streamlined and really look at goals and setting them and reaching them. And I liked how you kind of formatted that for us. Very nice. I love it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Then we break up in a lot of our campaigns quarterly, but I like that hard line and saying the halftime. So and we have a very sports-driven culture here in our methodology too. So, anyway, that's
and it's a lot of information. So go back and listen to the recording. Look at your social media numbers and set your goals. Take some time on this. It's not supposed to be something you can throw together. I think that was also a takeaway.
Yeah, and Tracy said takeaway is competing against everything going on out there, not just the competitors. And Jen's like, number of followers don't necessarily mean anything. What's important? So, so anyway, and then Casey, I think you might have lost audio. Can you hear us or no? Okay. Jackson, just tell him to smile, and we're thanking him profusely. Meanwhile, Carolyn Barth will be on 2 weeks from now. Remember, no show next week because of the Thanksgiving U.S. holiday. And she's all about content strategy. So we're going to learn a ton about her. And then we'll really get into this space about being able to use PR and social together. So did we get you back, Casey, or no?
Yeah, I'm back. I switched to my computer.
There you go. Modern technology. So that's good. Well, we were just thanking you profusely, whether you could hear us or not. So just so you know, and we were just commenting on the fact that everybody was chiming in on their one takeaway. And if people want to know more about, is this a slide deck published on your website at all?
It's not. It's something that I created specifically for you, but I can make it available to you guys if you want.
Yeah.
Right. And then Jackson, who's our big engagement winner for this session? Who was the most engaged on the platform today?
Today we had Gail Dishman. So.
All right. So Gail, congratulations. You're our Starbucks gift card winner. Now, Gail, what we want to encourage you to do is to make sure that when you have that cup of coffee with somebody that you care about, make sure that you teach them something that you learned. You had a lot of good comments in here about the relevant story, tell a relevant story. But now we're empowering you as an influencer, because everybody on with us are influencers, to really let them know what you learned from Casey, let them know about Casey, and we'd love if you mentioned Social Jack. But more importantly, teach people what you've learned so that you can really truly be a thought leader in what you do and also what you're learning to do. So that's our message.
And bring a business card.
And don't forget to connect to them on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
Casey, again, apologize everybody for running over by a minute or so, but want to thank you again, Casey. It's always a delight to hear you. We loved you from Social Media Strategy Summit, so we want to make sure we continue to follow you and track what you're doing. And thank you so much for your formula. We all learned so much from you, and we loved having you on.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. Really had a great time today, guys.
Awesome.
Yeah, good.
Thanks, y'all.
All right, Kate, we'll take them home.
All right. Make sure you're following us. Of course, Jen was tweeting this on Social Jack, on Twitter at @GetSocialJack, #Influence Factory. And we'll see you online in 2 weeks. Have a good Thanksgiving.
All right, everybody. Have a good Thanksgiving. Take care.
Happy Thanksgiving.